Yeah, man, it's his face, my uncle's face. Something that's really, really dear to me because it just makes me feel like he's with me at all times. And, I feel like after George was murdered, I feel like the world came together and it was just a huge shift in everybody standing up for each other, standing up with us and for us, and it's kind of the one bright spot that I can bring out of the situation because a lot of it is so dark. And yeah, it just reminds me that, I can make it through whatever because I honestly didn't see the end of the tunnel, man, when I was going through this. I think that people see the lawsuit and feel like, hey, the family received money, or they see us at the White House, or they see all of the celebrities that come around and that we probably been with, but they don't understand the dark days when the cameras are gone, when you're crying with your family, or, George has a daughter that, she wants to know, why did that man kill my dad? And we the ones that have to answer those questions. And, I feel like that's the hardest part, that people tend to forget that our loved one was lost, and that, that it's pain, and it's a lot of dark days too, not just, what the cameras may show.
Hi, my name is Nicole Martin, and I'm an attorney and the legal program director for the Know Your Rights Camp Autopsy Initiative. And here today, we have a special guest, Brandon Williams, who is George Floyd's nephew and who's going to be able to speak with us about his experience. So welcome, Brandon.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. And so do you mind giving a little bit of background and introduction into who you are?
Most definitely. First and foremost, thank you guys for having me. I'm George Floyd's nephew. I grew up in the home with him, though, so it's more like a father figure to me. His biological mother, Ms. Larcenia Floyd, was my legal guardian. So, right after leaving the hospital, I immediately lived in the same home as him. So it wasn't the typical, niece-nephew relationship. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me. And so I know that George's murder was a very difficult thing to experience. It was a tragedy that we all were able to witness because it was so high profile. So I just wanted to kind of talk to you about what was that grieving process for you like, for you and your family during that time?
Absolutely. That grieving process for me was, it was very difficult. I'm still actually grieving. I felt like 2020 and 2021 was probably the hardest and longest years of my life, simply because, we all experienced whatever experiences we did with COVID and with the world being shut down. And it was kind of like the forefront and the center of a lot of police killings on camera. And I think the world just kind of was nothing really to do except, watch what was going on. And honestly, I haven't even watched the full video yet. It's hard for me to watch it. I've seen bits and pieces. Being in the courtroom doing trial, I was forced to watch them. I believe the first day of trial, they actually showed a part of the video that I had never seen up until that point. And I think I broke down. I cried, and I had to get escorted out of the courtroom, to say the least. It's been hard.
Yeah, I can imagine that being extremely emotional. So I do appreciate you sharing that with me. And something that was significant that you brought up to me also was that you felt that you were just able to start the grieving process now. So kind of what was leading up into that stage from his death versus to now? Could you kind of give me a little bit of insight in what was happening during those times?
Most definitely, man. I think the world saw the video, but behind the scenes, I think it was a lot harder because everywhere we went, people wanted to just, first of all, just show us support and love and just tell us, hey, sorry for your loss, or hey, we feel for you guys, we're here. And it was all over the news, it was all over the internet. And then also everybody wanted to speak with us, from any celebrity you can think of. We went to the White House, we went to the Capitol building maybe 3 times in a year just to, actually sit and talk about our pain and what we experienced and, what changes we would like to see. And we sat there and we fought for laws to be passed. And, I think the hard part was like explaining to them what we went through and what we would like to see, and then nothing being done. It was more so a slap in the face But then, we still had to go through the court proceedings. So I live in Houston. My whole family is in Houston. We were raised in Houston, and we were traveling to Minnesota, once or twice a week. Sometimes, staying there for weeks at a time during trial. Trial was expected to be 4 weeks long. We literally lived in Minnesota. And, we were at trial every single day. We were in the courtroom, and to experience that, it was like the hardest part, because to be in the actual courtroom, they would only allow one person in at a time. So we would literally rotate, go up to the family room, take breaks, and just try to get through it. The hard part was also not being able to grieve. Everywhere we went, it was either a camera, or it was an interview, or it was a stranger, and I couldn't even go to the grocery store without, saying, "Hey, I saw you on the news, I want to give you a hug," or anything, and it was heartfelt, but I never got a chance to just breathe and just soak in losing somebody that I loved, that I cared about so much, who I looked at like a father. And, even after trial, I think that was the point where it was like, okay, I can relax. I'm not traveling this much. I changed my phone number, and I'm a new dad, and I was
Congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So I literally just started therapy and just had to kind of just fall off the face of the earth to actually just have time to myself and get in a better headspace, because all of the attention, everything that was happening for me, it came due to an unfortunate circumstance, which probably hurt me. I don't know my biological father, so he was the closest thing I had to a father. And to lose that, I felt like my world was shattered. So, I had to just kind of shift gears and just actually just focus on myself and getting in a better headspace, so that I could be the best version of myself for my daughter.
Yeah, I think that is so amazing. I think it's so inspirational and admirable that you were able to take this advocacy role. But again, it's not a role that anyone wanted to take. And I think that going through the process enough with losing someone is already difficult enough. But then losing them in such a tragic way makes it even more difficult. And with it being so high profile that it was, I can only imagine how difficult that was, because being able to take that time to reflect and regroup is so necessary. So I'm glad that you're at a space now where you're able to do that, to take care of yourself, because that is just such a tragic experience that is constantly being relived. So I am just so sorry that you and your family had to even go through that experience to begin with. And so the work that we do at the Autopsy Initiative, we provide free, independent secondary autopsies in police-related death cases. And so far, since we launched our program, we've now provided over 60 free autopsies to victims' families. And a constant kind of term that families have told us is that we've given them hope throughout this process. And so I know there were a lot of discrepancies within the autopsy reporting for George Floyd's death. And so we've seen discrepancies within our own cases as well. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what was that kind of autopsy process like on your end, from obtaining that first autopsy report versus the independent autopsy that you guys were able to get.
First and foremost, man, I just want to say thank you for the work that you guys are doing with the free autopsies, because, I think people don't really understand the significance of that.
Right.
I don't really know much about the autopsies in our case, because like I say, my uncle had just died and everything was fresh. So I was literally just kind of adjusting to just being thrown in the limelight. And
Right.
I mean, 2 days later, I was on CNN. I was living a regular life, working 9 to 5. I was working at Exxon at the time.
Right.
And, just to now just be all over the news and just be trying to navigate losing somebody that I loved, it was hard. But what I do remember is the first autopsy coming out, that the medical examiner in Hennepin County, which is in Minneapolis, they released it, and I believe it said that it was underlying heart conditions and other factors that played a role in his death. And for us trying to grieve and then hearing that, kind of like it's a slap in the face to say, hey, we watched the video.
Right.
The world has seen it, and you mean to tell me that he died because of a heart condition, when 20 minutes prior to being kneeled on for 9 minutes, he was in the store saying that he just finished playing basketball. He was in perfect health. Right. He didn't seem like that, he would drop dead in 20 minutes because he couldn't breathe just from walking around the store. One thing about him is he loved to work out. It was probably one of his favorite things to do. He was in great health. He was very muscular in build, and you know, it was no way that they could convince us that that was the reason he died.
Right.
After seeing somebody kneel on his neck for 9 minutes and him over 20 times saying that he couldn't breathe,
Right.
tell me that he would have dropped dead 20 minutes later had he not been kneeled on by police officers.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And yes, I do remember reading that they were saying that the first medical examiner ruled that the cause of death was due to cardiac arrest and significant other health conditions. And the second autopsy that was performed by Dr. Bodden and Dr. Wilson, who's actually on our pathologist panel, found that there were no significant health conditions and that the death was due to the compression of his neck and back, as we all saw in the video. So I know that having that second autopsy and the independent autopsy separate from the county medical examiner was able to assist within the trial and conviction ultimately. So I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on being able to obtain that conviction after, and if you think that there was a sense of justice that was able to be served in that sense.
Most definitely. I want to say, if I remember correctly, Dr. Biden testified, and I was actually in the courtroom on the day that he testified, and I actually met him in the courthouse. So absolutely great at what he does. I think that played a significant role because the defense, one of their main focuses was trying to say that, hey, maybe it was drug usage or maybe it was his heart condition and not that he was kneeled on and had his circulation cut off. And I think he did a great example of explaining all of the details down to the T of what really happened and the way that the human body works and what caused my uncle's death. And not to get off topic, I read a story about a woman that was, I believe, was in Mississippi. She had a daughter, a newborn daughter, and she was born, I want to say 6 or 8 weeks early. And they let her out of the hospital. They released her to go home. She was less than 5 pounds. And 2 days later, she was having trouble breathing, and her mom rushed her back to the emergency room. And in the midst of it, they tried to save her, and the doctors couldn't save her. So it goes on. The medical examiner says cause of death was, for she couldn't breathe or whatever, and that she had bruises, basically stating that she was abused or maybe hit on. But and they actually charged the lady with capital murder. Wow. And she spent a year in jail. So a year later, everything comes out that the bruises were actually from doctors pressure on her trying to save her. And, they dropped all charges, but that lady spent a year in jail due to the autopsy, them just putting that out there saying that, hey, that was the cause of death and that, the mother actually played a role in that child's death, and it was totally false. So, when you don't come in and do independent autopsies, you get results like that sometimes, and the situations can be traumatic. And to flip side it also helps protect officers or in other cases where they can kind of do the same and make it as if those at fault aren't actually at fault, which we've seen in my uncle's case try to happen.
Thank you so much for bringing that point up to me. But I think talking about the transparency within the autopsy process is very significant because there are several counties that have a sheriff coroner's office. So you have police investigating a police death, which can bring up several issues of bias, issues of manipulation of evidence. Sometimes the police that were involved in the death are present when the autopsy is performed. So that is why we make sure that we have an independent autopsy conducted by a board-certified pathologist on our panel who we trust to be objective in determining what the cause of death is. And so although our autopsy initiative was not in a creation when George's murder occurred, how do you think the autopsy initiative can help other families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death?
Man, it can help in a tremendous way. I believe that as so often we see the blue shield protects the blue shield. And, it's hard for cops to go against the good cops to go against the bad cops.
Right.
And we expect that because so often we see in situations, prime example, Rodney King, we saw him get beat to a pulp, and no officers being held accountable for their actions. So I think that we know that the blue wall is going to protect the blue wall. We need full transparency. And I think those independent autopsies provide just that, because the medical examiners, they all work for each other, and they're in cahoots to help each other. And if we don't get full transparency, we don't get accountability. If we don't get accountability, we don't get convictions. And I feel like the main way to stop a lot of these killings and a lot of things from happening is to hold these officers accountable. For so long, we've seen so many officers get away with excessive force or even killing unarmed, suspects. And a lot of times it's people of color, it's people of black and brown nature. And for some reason, all of the evidence points to a guilty verdict, and we don't get the guilty verdict.
Right. No, that's very true. And it's unfortunate that it's something we've seen consistently happening kind of time and time again. And that's why we're really hopeful that at least having the initiative will add that layer of accountability, and hopefully there won't be as many issues within the first autopsy to begin with. It's unfortunate that we even need the autopsy initiative, but we know that as police-related deaths continue to occur, if the police-related deaths are occurring, we want to be able to be that objective and transparent source of information. And we want to create a system of trust for the victims' families, because I can imagine that being difficult in that time because of people who we're supposed to trust, we can't rely on. So that is something that we definitely try to emphasize at the initiative. And so thank you so much for being able to share your perspective with me. Again, I'm very inspired by the work that you and your family have done. I know that it's difficult to even begin that grieving process. And then on top of that, you were overwhelmed from the beginning. I think that it was something, for you said, so unexpected to happen. Something that you mentioned to me was that we've seen several police-related deaths occur on TV, on the media, but we're never thinking that it's going to be your loved one there. So I just know that that's a truly difficult process to go through. And so I just think it is so commendable that you're able to share your experience to be able to inspire other family members who could be going through the same process. And actually would like to end with you kind of mentioning that you have been kind of supportive and been in those spaces with other victims' family members. So if you could talk to me a little bit about that portion, that would be great.
Oh, absolutely. I remember being in Minneapolis during my uncle's trial, and I was out. It was a Sunday. Trial was resuming Monday. We were out. We went to eat, shop, went to the mall to get a few things. I think I needed to get like some more ties because I was wearing suits like every day for a month straight.
Right.
So I went to get more ties, and we went to maybe like K&G or Men's Warehouse or something. And on my way back to the hotel, we heard about a police killing. It was actually the killing of Dante Wright, which I know his family well, Miss Katie and Mr. Aubrey. And I was literally about 5 minutes away from where that actually occurred. And it was a Sunday in the midst of Chauvin being on trial. They killed Dante Wright like 5 minutes from where I was. And I couldn't believe it. I got back to the hotel and I'm watching the news, and it's like, hey, Dante Wright had been killed by a police officer or whatnot. And it was strange because I saw the police lights and I saw it, but I'm thinking maybe it's a routine stop or something's going on, and it was like that close to me. And Breonna Taylor's family, I'm really, really close with them. Actually, Kenny Walker, who was Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, who was in the home when she was murdered, he'll be here tomorrow too.
Oh, wow.
But he actually lives in Houston now. That's like probably like one of my closest friends. He'll be here. I know I'm really, really close with Miss Sabrina Fulton, Trayvon's mother. I mean, the list goes on, but we all kind of connect through our tragedy and our pain, which is terrible. Yeah. But the one thing that I can say is during these situations, like I attended Amir Locke's funeral in Minneapolis, and most recently in Memphis, Tyree Nichols. I went to his funeral. I met his family, man, great people, and they were heartbroken. And I just wanted to be there just to, hug on them and just tell them, like, hey, I understand what you're going through. Nobody understands. I do. I can't feel your pain. I can't relate, but I know what comes with this. Just stay close, stay tight to family, and pray a lot. And kind of come together if you can, and rally for your loved one, and just try to see justice through, because it's gonna be a long road. I feel when the cameras go away and all of the media coverage go away, people tend to forget that you're human and that you're going through something. And you know, I think most people only come around for the attention, the media coverage, to be on the news or just be a part of something because it's getting a lot of attention. But you know, just stay close to those who are around for the right reasons, to just simply make sure you're okay, to comfort you and see that, you know, better days are here for you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that with me. And again, I'm sorry that that is what connected you all, but I am glad that there is still a sense of comfort and understanding that you guys can provide each other. But again, I'm just very sorry that all of you had to have that experience. But thank you so much again for sharing your insight and perspective with us, the challenges that you've had to go through and what you've been able to overcome during this process. So you will always have the support of Know Your Rights Camp, of the Autopsy Initiative, and we just really appreciate the work that you and your family have done and want to just thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us. And, you know, it's a lot of work to be done, and I salute the work that you guys are doing because, you know, it's easy to sit back and talk and say what you should do or want to do.
Right.
It's a big difference when you're out doing it and making a difference and making change. So thank you guys at Know Your Rights Camp for all that you're doing. I also want to just say thank you for the warm welcome, and you know, it's been nothing but love, and I appreciate, you know, the comfort and just how you guys have been treating me. It's appreciated.
Oh, of course, it's our pleasure. So thank you again, and we will talk to you guys soon.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. I am Nicole Martin, the Legal Program Director of the Know Your Rights Camp Autopsy Initiative. To learn more about the work that we do at the Autopsy Initiative, please visit our Know Your Rights Camp YouTube, our Know Your Rights Camp socials, and our knowyourrightscamp.org website. Thank you so much.